Welcome back, everyone, to Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. This is Betska K-Burr and Raj Vashisht and our delightful guest, Natalie Lynch. And we are very passionate about plant-based cooking, about vegan cooking, because, as I said earlier, it saves the lives of 40 million turkeys killed in the U.S. alone. And never mind all the cows and pigs and chickens and ducks and the fish in the sea that are murdered every year. So what Natalie is teaching us is that we can have a vegan plant-based diet that will blow your mind in terms of flavor and excitement, and everybody's going to want to come back for more. Yeah.
Yes.
So welcome, Natalie. And so in the first segment, we talked about the first course or an appetizer with lentil pâté. And you can receive that recipe by emailing Natalie at theindulgentvegan.com, theindulgentvegan.com. And she also has a Christmas ebook for sale. And you can purchase that and go to town. I mean, that's amazing. All right, so now we want to talk about main course, how to make a delightful main course for your Christmas Day dinner or your Christmas Eve, depending on where you live. Yeah. So what do you suggest here, Natalie, that would inspire people to have a delightful, violent-free Christmas?
Yeah. I think when it comes to having the main course, I think traditionally people are used to having a big turkey as a centerpiece. And I think when you're having a vegan Christmas, I think it's important to try and have a visually stunning centerpiece that just captures attention. And so there are various things that I do. And so often I do like either a large Wellington or a little individual Wellington. It depends whether you're going to plate up for people or whether you want to have a big spread on the table. But the nice thing about that is it feels really indulgent. And there's lots of flavors going on inside there as well. And puff pastry, I know people often think that it's not vegan, but it nearly always is when you actually buy it. And it's not necessarily for ethical reasons. It's just that it's cheaper to use oil than butter. But that's for us, that suits us because we can buy, vegan pastry. And it's just nice and easy. So I nearly always have some in the fridge. I sometimes make it, but it's a faff. If you just keep some puff pastry in the fridge at Christmas, you can quickly knock things out. And so in terms of, what's going to go into that Wellington, I think I like to have quite rich flavors with that and then have lighter sides to complement it. And so I do this kind of like bean kind of mash. So I saute onions with the beans in, and I have some toasted nuts in there and some chopped chestnuts in there and some nutmeg in there. That's kind of one of my layers. And then as a next layer, maybe I might have some cooked beetroot. You can have the beetroot as a lovely sort of bright red colour, or butternut squash. You can have both. So you've got oranges, but very much keep it as a layer. So you have one layer. So when you cut into it, you want to see the different lines. And so you have the kind of beanie layer at the bottom. The nice thing about the beanie layer at the bottom is that obviously the butternut squash and the beetroot might sort of produce juices, but they're going to sink into the butternuts to your bean layer rather than the pastry. So you haven't got sort of a soggy pastry at the bottom. And then on the top layer, I saute mushrooms and spinach together with soy sauce, just to add some extra umami and to make it really rich, and garlic in there as well, and some lemon juice sort of with the acidity there with the spinach just to complement it. So then you can have more layers than that even as well. Whatever you can think of, you can put as layers and have them. So in the UK, I'd call that a Wellington. Here in France, we would call that a pâtissier, which is a bit hard to say. And that's like, quite a classic thing. And you can sort of on the top, so you have the pastry on the bottom, you lay the fillings on top, and you have the other pastry, another bit of pastry on top, but it's this big dome. And so it's quite, like I say, it's like an eye catcher. And then you can kind of, here in France, you would kind of score marks on top of the pastry. So you've got patterns on there. You could also perhaps cut out some other pastry leaves and stick it on. And then we would brush it with a glaze. And so when I do a glaze, it's usually 1/3 agave to 2/3 soy milk. And you brush that on, and that's going to give it a nice kind of golden colour. when it comes out the oven. Things so when I bake it as well, I poke a hole in the top just to let any kind of juices come out as well. So that's, like I say, I like to have that kind of really visually appealing kind of centerpiece. Everything else kind of comes around. And it's absolutely delicious.
So that's the one, it's on your course, I think, but you're going to teach us how to make that, right? Because I saw a picture of it.
I have used the same concept, but I've made it, I kind of changed the recipe this year. So you're actually making a wreath with the same
Oh,
ingredients.
it's a wreath. Ah, okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So each year I change it. And so if you didn't want to do puff pastry, I also do a festive pie. It's the same filling, but it's using phyllo pastry. So it's nice and crispy, it's a bit lighter. So that depends whether you want something a bit lighter or heavier. You can use puff pastry with that as well. The wreath overall is less pastry than the Wellington because you're just using one disc that you're then sort of making to shape into a wreath. So you can kind of be creative and do different things with it, or you can make short crust pastry and do that instead. So it's quite versatile, but what's important is the fillings because they're such lovely strong flavors that complement each other. So you've got like the sweet squash, the earthy beetroot, perhaps you've got the sort of citrusy garlicky spinach and mushrooms, then you've got the more mellow kind of spicy sort of bean layer, like, with the nutmeg in. And so it's
did you just hear that, folks? Did you just hear what she described to me? I was like, oh my God, I want to eat it now. and just the way she talked about the bean mash, on the bottom with nuts and then nutmeg, right? Flavor.
Yeah,
and then
nutmeg,
And the beets and the squash. Would you put any, are there spices in with the beets and the squash? I couldn't remember if you said that.
I mean, sometimes I roast the squash in just some cumin and paprika, just so it's got some flavor on there. Beetroots, you could just put a little bit of balsamic vinegar on it when you bake it, just to sort of bring out the sweetness of the beetroot, and it goes a bit sticky as well, which is very nice. And then you've got that lovely, like I say, the citrusy, garlicky mushroom and spinach layer as well on the top. So it's all lots of lovely flavors there.
Yeah.
So really
See what I mean, folks? This woman is a genius with flavor. I mean, just what she just taught us in the last minute blows my mind, right? So, and then of course the mushrooms and the spinach, the garlicky lemon juice, soy sauce. I was just thinking, we kind of live in the boondocks, so finding a vegan puff pastry could be a little tricky. But I do know phyllo pastry is easier to find.
Yeah, it works beautifully with that as well. So in your membership, I give you that variation as well during the phyllo one of how to assemble that and how to make it.
Okay.
And so it also looks visually quite nice because you scrunch your phyllo up on top, so you've got big sort of fluffy crisp bits of phyllo on top, all high and structural on top. So
yeah, it looked so elegant in the picture. And again, folks, another great reason to join as a member for the indulgentvegan.com. Amazing flavor happening there. Okay, so then how about some sides for the main course? You've got this gorgeous centerpiece now.
Yeah, I like to have color because I think that's the beautiful thing about plant-based cooking. You basically have the rainbow like on the table, the rainbow of colors. And so I don't know whether this is a thing in the US and Canada or not, but in the UK, we have red cabbage, which we braise for hours with light apple in it and spices and orange in it. And that's just then this lovely, like bright purple thing on the table, which is just beautiful. And also Brussels sprouts, which people either tend to love those or hate those. But I do lovely sort of Brussels sprouts, cut them in half. I charcoal the bottom so they're quite dark and black. And then I braise, add some lemon juice on and some za'atar and some chopped mint and have some pomegranate seeds on. So you've got the pop of green and red, which looks, really, really festive. So I do that as well. And also we do a thing called stuffing, which is like a kind of breadcrumb, kind of like a bit like a nut roast kind of thing, sort of. So we do that. Trying to think all the things I do. Obviously, the gravy is quite. Do you call it gravy in the US? The kind of
yeah. Oh yeah, love gravy. Yeah, gotta have gravy.
Yeah, gotta have gravy. And so sometimes I do like a mushroom reduced gravy. So I perhaps put some dried porcini into turkey and stoke it and reduce it right down with some fresh mushrooms. or sometimes I do a caramelized red mushroom gravy with some red wine or port in it. So there's lots of different gravies. So the gravy is quite integral, I think, to bring it together. If you're feeling very adventurous, you could have a look at seitans, but that's obviously a bit more involved. And then there's also what we call in France a gratin dauphinoise, which I think you guys are probably more familiar with the term scallop potatoes. And it's kind of the same thing where you have thinly sliced potatoes in a kind of creamy sauce, and that's incredibly rich. And I like to do that because I think it's a stereotype that, vegan cooking is going to be, very healthy, very light, but not very kind of indulgent. And I like things to taste a little bit indulgent. And so it's certainly a very heavy thing, but I think it complements to kind of the lighter sides beautifully. And then there's also roast potatoes, which are just an absolute must for Christmas as well.
Yeah,
so the table is usually heaving at that point. But it's one day, isn't it? It's one day.
It's one day. You got it. And of course, you have leftovers the next day.
Exactly.
When you were discussing the Brussels sprouts, our daughter and her husband and our grandson came for Canadian Thanksgiving, which is in October, and and I was just making plain old food. That was before I started learning from you, right? And she goes, Mom, next time we come, can we do something exciting with Brussels sprouts?
Oh, use my recipe. My husband has always hated sprouts up until I developed that recipe, and now he eats them. And so if I can turn him around, I think we can turn anybody around with those sprouts. They are delicious. The key is not to boil sprouts, not to have any water near them. Don't boil them, don't steam them. Either roast them or, like I say, char grill them like RG braise them, but just don't boil that sprout. That's just sacrilegious. Don't boil them.
That's what we always do, is boil them. No wonder she was bored. Now, I think I heard you say a spice that I'm not used to, za'atar?
Yeah, that's not a very Christmassy thing. So it's a Middle Eastern spice blend, and it has things like thyme in it and sesame seeds. So the Brussels sprout recipe is very much a Middle Eastern twist on sprouts.
That's fine.
So it's very fragrant. So it's got lemon juice and, like I say, pomegranate, and it's got the za'atar in. And if you can't find za'atar where you are, then you can make your own blender. But otherwise, you can just put some fresh thyme on, and that works fine as well.
Oh, we've have some. I just don't know what to do with it. It's in my cupboard, so I'm excited. And then did you say mint as well?
Fresh mint as well on top. Yeah. Sprouts.
Okay. Wow. Okay, that sounds good. Now with the beets, I didn't write fast enough. Beets with apple and onion. Did you say?
No, that was red cabbage.
Oh, red cabbage. Sorry. Yes. Okay, red cabbage. Right. Okay.
That's a very traditional British thing, and that's always on every single table at Christmas. That's very, very British, but I absolutely love it. It's so flavoursome. And that's one thing you can make the day before even as well, and it can just sit there and you can just reheat it on the day. So
okay. So is it boiled or barbecued? What do you do with the red cabbage? Roasted?
No, so you basically you just put it all in the. So you might start off by sautéing a few mushrooms, onions, and then you just put all of the cabbage on top, slice it thinly, so it's quite a lot of cabbage in there, and you perhaps put some chopped up apple in there, a little bit of orange juice, some cloves, a little bit of cinnamon, and you put it on low heat, and you just cook it over a few hours, and eventually it just cooks right down. It becomes very tender. It's very spicy because all the Christmas spices. And it's just a really great accompaniment to everything else.
Raj, doesn't that sound amazing? That sounds amazing. Okay, great.
The colorful presentation is very important to encourage children and young generation.
That's right.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because they are attracted through colorful things easily.
And I think as well, children generally don't like vegetables, do they? So I know my son's very picky with vegetables, but I think if you do exciting things with them, like with the Brussels sprout thing, it's got mint on and lemon juice on, he'll eat them. The other thing I had forgot to say as well is I do like carrots, like maple and lemon glazed carrots at Christmas Day as well. And that transforms carrots too. They're just vibrant and just lovely. The lemon juice brings out the taste of the carrots. And so my son goes then from hating carrots to eating all the carrots on the table. So it's about knowing how to vegetable kind of sing, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that is so exciting. And the mushroom gravy, you inspired me here, because normally we just go and get the brown criminy mushrooms from the store. But I do have dried mushrooms. I'm of Ukrainian descent. I can't remember what they're called in English. They're called katsarubki in Ukrainian, but they look like
Well, in
little umbrellas.
France, yeah, I think they're probably in France we call them cep, and I think everyone else calls them porcini. I think it must because they're
Oh,
very much like umbrellas, aren't
yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, those are beautiful because they've got so much flavor in them. So those are really great for
Mm,
cooking with. So sometimes I
mm,
blitz them into a powder, and they're there
right.
as kind of like then a mushroom powder. You can add that umami to things. But otherwise, for the gravy, yeah, for the gravy, you can just soak them until all the brown liquid comes out, and all that brown liquid, that's your flavor, and that's your stock. Is the basis for the gravy.
Right. Gosh, I've got all these dried mushrooms here. I'm gonna go crazy for our Christmas dinner this year. I'm gonna have lots of fun. That's so great. Thank you. And we've got dried shiitakes, we've got different kinds of dried mushrooms here. So,
I often
but
do 50% porcini, 50% shiitake as a powder, and then that just
okay.
sits there as my mushroom umami powder.
Right. Oh, that's so exciting. Okay. All right. And then the scalloped potatoes you've discussed, and then of course roast potatoes and so on. But let's take a brief pause, and we're going to be coming right back, folks, for dessert recipes. We're going to wow you, so stay with us.